Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. There is a globe icon near the hand feature on your screen. This will allow you to listen and participate in tonight's event in Spanish. Our interpreters this evening are Lorna Silva and Annabella Tudona. Thank you for your time and services this evening.
May I say the instructions in Spanish?
Please do.
Buenas tardes. Para acceder al servicio de interpretación en español, por favor vayan a la parte de abajo de su pantalla donde está la barra de herramientas. Van a encontrar un icono con la forma de un mundo. Hagan clic en ese icono de interpretación. Seleccionen el idioma español para escuchar a las intérpretes. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. Chair, when you're ready, we can proceed with the meeting.
Thank you. Good evening. Let's call the meeting to order. It is 6:05 p.m. on February 24th. Welcome to the Independent Redistricting Commission's regular meeting. Tonight is a hybrid meeting with limited IRC members and city staff present here in council chambers, while others participate remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce the staff and commissioners present. Staff includes City Clerk Judy Herron and Administrative Assistant Sarah Sandoval. Commissioners present, Vice Chair Gilmer, Commissioners Vallis, Earhart, Saad, and Walter. Commissioner Hill is absent this evening. Ms. Sandoval, would you please provide instructions to the commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair Ariano. For any members of the public in virtual attendance this evening, if you wish to provide public comment after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, you can press *9 to raise your virtual hand. This includes general public comment for items not on the agenda as well.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to item C of the agenda, public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the IRC on any subject not listed on this evening's agenda. Each speaker may address the IRC once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or the political jurisdiction in which you live. Also note the IRC cannot act on items not listed on the agenda and therefore cannot respond to non-agenda items brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Ms. Sandoval, please call for any general public comment.
Thank you, Chair Ariano. At this time, if any member of the public wishes to comment on any subject not listed on this evening's agenda, you may do so. Virtual attendees can go ahead and engage that raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. Or if you are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9 now. This will be our final call for public comment on any items not on this evening's agenda. I see a hand, Chair.
Hi, this is Katie Baruzzi. I'm a resident in District 2. Can you hear me?
Yes, Katie,
Yes,
we can
thank
hear you.
Oh, great. I have been interested in looking at the mapping, and I had 2 comments I wanted to share. One is that I've noticed, and I hope this is the right time for this. I confess I haven't scrutinized the agenda to understand whether this is going to be addressed later. But there's one technical issue that I wanted to raise, which is that the mapping tool that you're using seems to include parts of like sort of phantom sections of the county that are not actually part of Menlo Park. And that can skew the numbers. So if people are trying to say get a really low percentage difference between different districts, but they're accidentally including part of Menlo Oaks or part of Atherton, which the mapping tool actually does, that can be slightly problematic. So I'm hoping that somebody is looking into that. And I did, I think, email the city clerk about this. So that was one point that I wanted to make. And then the other point that I wanted to make was that I could imagine if I were on a commission like this, I would feel almost as though it were my job, my responsibility to come up with new districts. And I worry sometimes that we might have more of a bias toward change. And I hope that if the current districts seem to still demographically work pretty well, that they might be overlooked. So I guess I would encourage the commission, as you're looking at different options, not to ignore the status quo. And I think it would be useful for somebody to put that into the tool as well and evaluate that, especially since we're at a point in time when we're going to have a whole lot more development and changes in the next decade. So it's we know this is just a point in time, but I think I would like to see us seriously evaluate as a community the existing districts. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you.
Okay, this will be our last call for public comment on any items not on this evening's agenda. Seeing no more hands, Chair, we can continue.
Thank you. Next item is D, consent calendar. Under the consent calendar, the IRC may take action to approve routine business items in one motion unless a commissioner, city staff member, or member of the public requests that an item be discussed or continued to a later date. Ms. Sandoval, please call for public comment on the consent calendar.
Thank you, Chair Ariano. At this time, if any members of the public wish to comment on item D1 of the consent calendar, accept the Independent Redistricting Commission minutes for February 10th, 2022. Please engage that raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9 to raise your virtual hand. Seeing no hands, Chair Ariano, we can continue.
Thank you. Turn to the commission. Any discussion or questions on the consent calendar? Seeing none, is there a motion and a second on the table to approve the consent calendar?
I would move to accept the minutes.
I would second that.
Thank you. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for a vote.
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Earhart and seconded by Commissioner Saad to approve the consent calendar. Are there any further commission discussion or questions? Okay, by roll call vote. Commissioner Ballas,
I was not present at the last meeting, so I guess I abstain.
okay. Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad.
Yeah.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
and Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes with Commissioner Ballas abstaining and Commissioner Hill absent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, E, regular business. Item E1, mapping tool workshop. I would like to introduce our consultants from GeoInnovo, Mr. Alex Sands. Mr. Sands, are you on the line?
Yes, Chair Ariano, I'm here. We're good. If we're good to go ahead and start the demonstration, I can jump right in.
Excellent. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight we'll be providing a mapping workshop, as was requested by the Independent Redistricting Commission at the last meeting. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and start my screen share. And today we're just going to take a little bit of a in-depth look at the Districtor tool, review some of the functionality, and answer any questions that the board might have, or that the independent commission might have. Okay. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you go to the main districtor page, you'll see the districtor event page, districtor.org event/event/mp-maps. If you click on the purple button here, that seems to be the one that's getting the most attention, Menlo Park Council Districts. So you can click on that. And we'll go ahead and jump right into the map. And as you can see here, it'll just show a blank map with the city limits, census blocks. Before we get into drawing draft districts, I'd like to go ahead and start by explaining some of the information that's available to either the IRC or any interested residents who may be drawing a map. So ideally, we'd like to have districts that are as balanced as possible. You'll see colored bars here, which you'll see as I start drawing draft districts. But as the first caller who commented observed, we do have some supplemental layers that can be used as a point of reference when creating draft districts, including school districts, neighborhoods, water districts, multifamily residential parcels. So these were all provided for the districtor tool by the city's GIS staff. And there's also this evaluation tab where you, as you're drawing, I'll go back to this, but you'll be able to see the progress as you're drawing districts and the demographic breakdowns for specific ethnic groups. So with all that being said, we can go ahead and jump in. You'll see in the top right here, the first button you'll see is this hand tool, which is a pan very similar to what you would find in a Google Maps or an ArcGIS Online map. So you just use that to pan, usually to zoom. If you're using a regular desktop or laptop, you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse or similar function to zoom in and out. The next tool here, which you'll see on the right, is the paint tool. This is really where the rubber meets the road with the districtor tool. So with this tool, we'll just start in the north end of the city here. You can actually adjust the slider and make the brush size. You'll see this brush size indicator here. Brush size can either be made smaller or larger, all the way up from 0 to 100 or 1 to 100. And we'll start off with a small brush, which enables you to select as few as one block at a time. Go here. So here we can select individual blocks. Let's pick some ones with population. And as you can see, as you select blocks, the population counter goes up. We can go ahead and make our brush bigger. And as you can see, it'll select many more blocks with each click. So just right there, we're almost getting up to the balance for what would be a district here in the north end, current location of District 1. If once you're satisfied with the blocks that you've selected for a specific district, there is a function here in the top of the tool that allows you to lock the already selected districts, which is pretty handy, especially if you want to make sure that none of your selections get overridden when you start drawing new districts by selecting new colors from the palette here. So you can click this checkbox, lock already drawn districts. And as an example, I'll click on the yellow button here. We'll go ahead and start selecting districts. And even as some of the blocks that I've already selected show up in the shading here, none of those will be overridden with yellow. You'll see that they'll stay blue because I've clicked this lock already drawn districts. If I were to uncheck that, I could go back and it would start to override. So you'll see the population for this blue area go down while the block selected in yellow will start to go up. So that's one function that you may want to keep in mind while you're drawing draft districts. Again, we could go through drawing an entire district map, but for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just gonna keep these two drafts here. Oh yeah, as you're drawing, one thing to keep in mind that's quite important is to make sure that your draft districts are as balanced in population as possible. And one key indicator that you'll see is the population deviation. So we want to keep this as close to 0 as possible. 10 is going to be the maximum limit for creating a viable draft that could be considered in redistricting. So let's say, let's add a little bit more to the blue, and we'll bring some more blocks here into the yellow. And as you'll see, as these two values get closer, the population deviation goes down, and it'll give you feedback in real time as new blocks are selected, which can be very helpful. So that's actually pretty good. Oh, went a little bit over there. Oh yeah, so if you'd like to erase, so like in this case, selected a few too many blocks here. There's this erase tool. Click on the little eraser button, hover over some blocks, and it'll start to subtract from the blocks that have already been selected. And it's the exact same principle as the brush tool. So increase the slider to unselect or erase more blocks, and decrease the slider for a little bit more fine tuning, and you can select fewer blocks. Okay, so we'll go back to our drawing tool here. And on the evaluation tab, we're seeing that we're seeing districts that correspond with each color that has been selected. And you can, it doesn't have to be these specific 3. These are just set by default, white, Hispanic, and Asian. But you can select African-American population. You can select Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, Native American, any one of these ethnic groups here can be selected, and those results will be reflected in the draft districts that you've drawn so far. As you can see, I have not selected any blocks with the green, the lighter green, and the magenta. So those 3 do not show any population figures at this time. But if I do select one, you'll see that this figure updates in real time, along with the population. So everything that you're drawing is being recorded by the application, and it allows you to get a good visual of the draft districts that are being drawn. Let's see. On the data layers, we did have a public comment at the last meeting asking about school districts. That's actually a great way to see if you wanted to capture specific school district within a city council district, so that those are more or less aligned. You have the same type of representation there. You can use these school districts as a visual, because the school districts would definitely qualify as a community of interest. Certain families or certain children in a specific geographic area, they might all attend schools in the same school district. So we, for example, in one iteration of the map, you may want to keep communities together by the school districts they attend. Another tool here, I've already demonstrated the eraser, but if you click on the magnifying glass, this is the inspect tool. And if you hover over the census blocks, as you can see here, I'm just kind of hovering over a few here. It'll actually show you the total population at the top, and then a demographic breakdown, so that if you come to a point where you're getting pretty close on your population variance, and you're just ironing out those fine details around the edges, you can use this tool here to get real-time feedback on what the population is for each block within the city. I would say probably the final step after this is saving your map. This is important because if you definitely want to save your map to get that into the public gallery, and either save it as a draft so you can come back and work on it later, or submit it so that GeoNovo, the demographer, we can begin processing that data and enter it as a public map for consideration. So if you, there's going to be a save button right up here. Click on save. This is obviously not a complete map. So if you click share now, that'll post it right to the gallery. And once it's in the gallery, there's that, you know, it's going to stay there. It's going to become public record, and it's you know, it's going to be out there as a draft map. If you click work in progress, you can save as a draft, and I will call this mapping workshop. And we'll save this as a draft. And you'll see that the save button will turn green and it'll say saved. If we go back, we'll go back to the event page. And under works in progress, we'll see our mapping workshop test 1. This is a draft plan. I can come back and edit it, update it, and then save it to the public gallery when I'm satisfied with the plan. The last item that I'll go over is communities of interest. This is all of the drawing functions are identical to the draft districts. The only difference being that this is these don't necessarily have population or you know, VRA type of considerations when drawing a community. So in this case, we might want, instead of school districts, we might want to use neighborhoods. So let's say Linfield Oaks right here, close to the center of the city. We can begin selecting blocks that more or less align with the Linfield Oaks neighborhood. And then we can call this Linfield Oaks. Community of interest. And communities of interest are quite subjective. They really do act as a reflection of the priorities of the local community. So us as a demographer, this kind of input is very helpful to us, as it helps us identify if there's an opportunity to keep a specific community, you know, that has specific needs or specific things that they would like to see addressed by the city council. So this feedback is actually very helpful, and we'll just call this a test. That way nobody mistakes it as a real community of interest. And same principle. You can save it as a work in progress, or you can share now. The last one, we saved it as a work in progress. This one, we will share it. Field Oaks test. Use. And we will save that to the gallery. And if we go back to the event page, let's see, there's the event page on the public gallery now. And there's our test. So that's more or less a breakdown of the Districtor tool and the functionality for drawing draft districts and communities of interest. And I will go ahead and hand it back to Chair Arellano for any questions on the Districtor tool.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from Mr. Sanders on his presentation? We'll get to discussion comment, but if you have specific questions on his presentation, now is the time. Yeah, Commissioner Todd.
So there was the public comment caller that mentioned that I think the map is larger than the city limits. I think is I thought maybe Mr. Sainz can address this in his answers and comments to the public.
Yes, Commissioner Saad, to answer your question, so we are aware of the blocks extending slightly outside of the city limits, and as public input is being submitted through the Districtor tool, we are taking that data, processing it, and making those corrections along the edges so that only the census blocks that are officially within the city limits are included for the final public map submissions.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Sainz.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, Ms. Sandoval, do we have any public comments on item E1?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, if any member of the public wishes to make a comment on item E1, they can go ahead and engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of the screen. Calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9 to raise your virtual hand. This will be our final call for public comment on item E1, Mapping Tool Workshop. Seeing no hands raised, Chair Ariano, please continue.
Okay, thank you. Let's bring it back to the commission for any discussion. Anything from the commission?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Commissioner Walter, thank you. Go ahead.
Would you mind showing us again how to show the current districts on the tool? Or if we can even overlay those with new maps? Well, we probably can't overlay them, but a way to see the current district.
Yes, Commissioner Walter. So the current districts are not available on the districtor tool, and at this time, we can no longer make changes to the application.
Okay.
So unfortunately, we cannot provide the overlay of the current districts on the districtor tool at this time.
Thank you.
Maybe just as an addition to that point, we do have for the first post map public hearing, we will have a web map available that we're actually going to be deploying that very soon, where we will have the current districts plus all of the publicly submitted maps that have been processed up to that point. So that will be constantly updated as we go along through the process, and that will have the current district so that you can use that as a reference point.
Terrific.
Any other discussion? I did have one question about folks who prepared draft maps in Districtor, but maybe forgot to save or I forget what the function is, but the map is still considered a work in progress as opposed to a shared map. How will you be handling those maps in terms of consolidating your work and then presenting to us for evaluation?
Yes, that's a great question, Chair Ariano. We're at this point, we're only processing maps that have been officially submitted to the public gallery. Any draft maps, if a member of the public would like to get those either entered officially into the map gallery, or have them considered by the IRC, I would advise them to either, but the easiest option would be to save it to the official map gallery, or if anyone has trouble doing that, they can also contact the city clerk's office and alert them that they would like their map elevated for evaluation by the GeoNovo team.
Thank you. It just seems to me not completely out of the realm of possibility that someone would forget to hit save or whatever the function is after spending a lot of time preparing a map. And so I guess my thought, perhaps I'd be interested in hearing what the other commissioners would have to say, is if in going through any work in progress maps, you guys find that there is essentially a fully formed map, districts drawn or communities of interest drawn, that that maybe would be something that you include for our consideration.
Sure. Is there is there any specific criteria that that you as the commission would want us to look for, specifically in regards to maps that are still drafts in the gallery?
I guess I'd bring that back to the commission. I know, or I sense that one of the things that we are all anxious and a little bit concerned about is the amount of public input we've received, and perhaps the lack of public input that maybe we received as compared to our expectations. And so it would be a shame if we were not considering a map based on someone failing to click the button. So I welcome thoughts from on how we would handle what is it called in Districtor when you haven't shared a map?
That function would be called save as work in progress.
Okay, so any thoughts from the commission on how we might handle maps that are technically work in progress status within the software, but could feasibly be evaluated as a draft map submitted by the public? Commissioner Assad?
So I would say, I appreciate your point, Chair Ariano, that you want to have as many input as possible, especially for the people who have spent the time but then saved it. Sometimes there's this fear factor. I went through it myself, that you don't want to publish your work unless you have to go back to it and work on it. But in my opinion, I would say the criteria would be if it meets the demographic variation, which is, I believe, is 10%, if I'm not mistaken, between districts. So if anything meets the 10% or less, I think it would be worthy of your consideration if it's not a daunting work. Do we have any statistics how many maps have been submitted to, as of today to as official work, and how many are still work in progress?
Yes, Commissioner Saad. So you are correct on the population variance. We are looking for maps that are under that 10% population variance threshold. As of today, we have processed and created maps for 8 viable public submissions, which actually is outstanding so far. We have seen a couple of more submissions posted to the Districtor tool in the last couple of days. So processing of those maps is in progress, and we are constantly monitoring the Districtor tool to find out any to check for any new draft district submissions or communities of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Sainz. I have one follow-up question. I was very prolific in submitting 3 maps, I think, to the as in official ones. And I was wondering, is there an option for me to retract, or for the public to retract something that they have submitted and then they have polished further and they wanted to make a different submission?
That's another excellent question, Commissioner Saad. So actually, we have already had a member of the public. Some of you may remember, I don't see her in the meeting today, but Pam Jones actually provided an email to the city clerk's office, which was then forwarded to the GeoNovo team, that she wanted to retract one of her submissions that she entered in the public map gallery. And we were able to retract that, not include it for consideration. So definitely, I would say the best way, if you do submit a draft to the gallery, and then maybe a day or two later, you're like, you have a second thought and you'd like to retract the map, just contact the city clerk's office. We're in constant communication with Judy and her team, and we'll make sure to not consider that draft.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
This is Jesus, Commission. Right now, just to let you know, within our system, on my end, I have room for 20 maps. So if, which is quite a lot. So if some folks would like to retract a map, that would leave room for an additional valid map. So again, just to let you know, we right now have a capacity for 20 maps. If we get more than 20 maps that are viable, then we'll just modify our process. But we're in a good position to evaluate and assess just about every comment that the community or you commissioners would like for us to review.
So if I'm understanding that correctly, we have, or you have capacity to look at 20, we have 8.
Well, in my initial setup, I set it up for 20, but if we have 8, so we have 12 more to go. But should we have more than that, I would just expand my process and you know, put as many maps as we want. And we've seen some.
I think to clarify your question, Chair Ariano, we have the flexibility to process and evaluate as many maps as are submitted. There's really no limit at this time.
Chair Ariano, may I add one more thing?
Let's go to Vice Chair Gilmer.
Thank you. I agree with the criteria that Commissioner Saad was suggesting. I'd like to add that we shouldn't consider any maps that have an unassigned population greater than 0, because you need to count for everybody in Menlo Park. So if they haven't completely assigned all of the voters in Menlo Park, I don't think it's something that we should try to consider and you know, maybe interpret to add voters to one district or another. That was all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a clarification. You both, Mr. Garcia and Mr. Sainz, you used the descriptive viable. And what do you mean by viable? Is it the one that meets the criteria of the 10% variation, or please let me know.
Great question, Commissioner Saad. So yeah, at a high level, the 2 biggest factors that we're looking for and the 2 most common criteria that we see that would make a draft map not viable are, like you said, the population variance, but also districts that are not geographically contiguous. So just we would advise, you know, any members of the commission or the public who are submitting a draft map, just give it a quick review, make sure that your draft districts are geographically contiguous. You know, that there's not a district that has, you know, 1 block selected in one end of the city and then you know, the majority of the other blocks on the other end of the city. So those are the 2 major criteria that we're looking at in terms of ethnic groups. You know, those can vary depending on the area of the city, but the 2 major criteria we're looking at are population balance and districts that are geographically contiguous.
And on that same note, maybe can I ask for further clarification from Vice Chair Gilmore on what he meant by voters? We're not evaluating voter data in this process, as Alex has mentioned. We're evaluating population and citizen voting age population. While the state does have voter statistics, it's not a criteria that we're evaluating in this process. So our evaluation is on population, not voters. And I just would like a clarification on that statement.
Yeah, if I may, that was my mistake. I meant the unassigned population in districtor. I know that we don't want to, you know, you have to fill out all the blocks to bring the unassigned population down to 0. And if a map created by somebody doesn't have an unassigned population 0, it means that there are some people that are not represented in any district, and that should probably not be something we should consider.
Thank you.
To your point, Commissioner Vice Chair Gilmer, if I could just share my screen one more time, there actually is a visual tool that in Districtor that may be able to assist residents or members of the public when submitting maps, specifically to that criteria that you mentioned. And I think that's important enough to do a quick screen share here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start my screen share. We'll go ahead and jump back into districts. So I'll just pick a slider here. And then there's a little box here in the bottom, highlight unassigned units. If you click on this, it'll highlight any district that has not been, any census block that has not been assigned to a council district. Uncheck it, it'll take that visualization off. So as you make progress, now I only see the blocks highlighted in the north. And it's a great visual tool to see, oh, I missed a little census block in here. I need to go back and highlight and assign it to a district. So that's another visual tool that may be very useful to members of the public who are submitting draft maps.
Chair Ariano,
Yes.
we have a hand raised from the public. If you'd like to reopen public comment.
Sure. Let's do that. We'll reopen public comment and hear from the member of the public.
Okay.
Hi, so sorry, this is Kitty Bruzy again. This is exactly the thing I was talking about that I want to really highlight. I actually attempted to create a map of the current districts in there, which is the one that says current districts ? Because I wanted to have that comparison set, that baseline. And it's actually not possible to create a map that includes, that assigns all the voters without actually skewing the data. So for example, it wants you to include a portion of Bay Road that belongs to Atherton, a weird long leg on Marsh Road, a huge block of Menlo Oaks. And if you were to assign all of those voters, it would tell you that D2 was way too large, that the existing D2 was beyond the 10% or whatever metric. And so if I'm and I know that you're going to clean that up on the back end, but if I'm a member of the public or a member of the commission and I'm creating a map and I'm trying my best to balance the population, having these phantom voters in there, you have two bad choices. You can unassign voters, in which case Vice Chair Gilmore would like to reject the map. But I hope like that wouldn't actually happen, right? That what would happen is that whoever's looking at the data would then, do their best to like clean up the unassigned voters who aren't actually Menlo Park voters or unassigned residents who aren't actually Menlo Park residents, and then it would be okay. But do you see the problem? If I'm a resident and I'm trying to create balanced districts, and the map is telling me you have another 1,000 people living on, Stanford property or in Atherton or unincorporated county that you have to include for this to be a valid map. It doesn't give you very many good choices. So I'm wondering, I just see that as problematic. And I think a lot of members of the public aren't necessarily maybe going to scrutinize or look in there and figure out what to do about that challenge. So I really hope that you can address this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baruzzi. Any other public comment?
Chair, I don't know if I may.
Just 1 second, Mr. Sands.
Sure.
No, nothing else.
Last call, anyone else for public comment for item E1 mapping tool workshop? If you would like to make a public comment, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9. Okay, Chair, we have no hands. We can continue.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sands, I actually the comment from Ms. Baruzzi is one I appreciate. Could you please respond and I guess if I could ask it what I believe to be the same question a slightly different way. Could you just talk us through the way you all will scrub, for lack of a better word, the maps people submit in district or for things that either could be technical errors within software, for example, those sort of boundaries that don't necessarily reflect incorporated Menlo Park, or maybe user error where someone forgets to include one census block somewhere within a district that is otherwise pretty clear what they were trying to do.
Yes, great question. So to answer you and the comment from Ms. Baruzzi, we are looking at all public submissions in the map gallery at this time. What we can do is we can follow up with the vendor who provides the restrictor to see if they can help us clean that up so that we're not doing so much cleanup on the back end. But we are looking at and evaluating all public maps that are submitted, and as long as they come within that 10% variance, we do understand and we appreciate that members of the public may not use mapping software every day. So if someone misses a census block, in a couple, one or two places, but it's otherwise clear what their intent was when submitting a draft map, we will go ahead and process that and make the proper corrections on the back end.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the commission on this item?
I guess, do we, question.
Commissioner Walter, go ahead, please.
I think Katie raises a great question. Do we have any sense of the magnitude of the issue? Like how many blocks we have on our, how much population we have on our map that's really not meant to be allocated? Is it a couple hundred people? Is it a couple thousand people? Is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Was that, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you? Did you get a chance to finish your question?
Please go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So the magnitude is not very large. So the population in Districtor is about 35,007, and what we're seeing with the cleaned up data is that the population is, let's see, I believe it's 33,830. Let me go ahead and double check my numbers just to make sure I'm giving you an accurate figure. Yes, 33,830. So we're looking at approximately 1,177. So in terms of percentage, that's not terribly large, but it is large enough that it will require us to do some processing on the back end just to make sure that all the data looks good when it's finalized and forwarded to the commission for consideration.
This is also the number of blocks with population is not as large as the visual. Some of those phantom geographies are along the Stanford. There's, I guess, a creek along the side there, and so some of the parcels, some of the census blocks have no population. We have at most. Well, I'd have to give you a number, but many of the phantom geographies are that they're phantom, but they're vacant along the rivers or unincorporated areas such as along the freeways or something along that line. But we will be evaluating every map and then trying to gauge where the intent was of the person creating the map, and then we'll come back with you and let you know, how close we've gotten to them.
Okay, thank you. I can tell you that I'm eagerly anticipating our first review of the map submissions. Next item is F, informational items. Informational items are transmitted to the IRC and staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the IRC. Informational items are not action items, however. A commissioner, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. We have one this evening. And Ms. Sandoval, do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair Ariano. At this time, if any member of the public wishes to comment on informational item F1, public engagement update, they can do so by engaging the raised hand feature at the bottom of the screen or dialing *9 from your landline or cell phone. This will be our last call for public comment on informational item F1, public engagement update. Seeing no hands, Chair Ariano, we can continue.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the commission. Any questions, discussion on this item? Sorry, yes, Commissioner Earhart.
Yes, I have one question. So first, a huge thank you to the staff for reaching out in so many different ways and for sharing this so broadly. I noticed that on one of the announcements, the February 14th announcement, it included a map of the Menlo Park neighborhoods that is inadequate. It does not mention, for instance, Bellhaven or the Willows, and I wondered when that is going to be updated and corrected.
Thank you, Chair Earhart. Actually, I do believe a member of the public had brought this to our attention as well. Can you repeat which?
Yes, it's the February 14th announcement that went out. It's titled Redistricting Mapping Workstations Available at Menlo Park Libraries. If you look at the map that accompanies that announcement, again, Bellhaven is not mentioned, but it's lumped in with Suburban Park, Flood Triangle. The Willows is not mentioned, but there is an area called South of Seminary and Vintage Oak. So it's a little distressing to see a map coming out that doesn't accurately reflect the neighborhoods of Menlo Park.
Definitely. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And again, thank you. I believe it was Pam Jones who brought that to our attention as well. And we were just seeking some clarification. So thank you for that. And we will more than definitely check on what was sent out and make sure that future includes the correct maps, correct neighborhoods and that sort. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner questions or comments on the informational report? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Item G, Commissioner Reports and Announcements. Anything further from the IRC since our last meeting on February 10th? Seeing none from the commission, I do just have one brief report. We did receive an email forwarded from Ms. Herron from a resident by the name of Patty Fry. Ms. Fry, I did see your comment. I thank you for it. And as we evaluate the maps presented by our mapping consultants, I will keep your comment in mind. So thank you for that. Anything further? If not, we can adjourn. Thank you.